reminder. I have no idea. But yeah, we're live now.
But we don't know where we're live now.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube now, but we don't know if we're live on the link I've been sending people to get to, but they'll see my channel, and presumably you can only have one thing that's live at a time. So I think that this, whatever we're doing right now that is live now.
Yeah.
Okay, at one point I'm going to learn how to actually do this properly.
Well, you know, I've put the link in my Instagram bio and we're live now. Episode, I don't even know what number.
2.
Because technically
we did
2.
0, 1, and this is the second episode.
This is episode 2.
Because we did a pilot. So you'd imagine that after the pilot, I know how to publish properly, activate live without hearing myself in the feedback loop with the 20-second delay. But no, I have not.
Well, I didn't even know it was pilot and then episode 1. I thought it was pilot and then episode 2. I don't even know. I should know that.
I don't know. I counted that it was episode 0, but I don't know. Let's just move on, I guess.
We'll move on. Today's cup, I went for Mr. Meeseeks.
I have The Little Prince, which is my only other cup.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that book. That's one of Davina's favorite books.
And the quote is, every grown-up was a child. Every grown-up used to be a child. That
is worth coming back to when I tell you the question.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not going to tell you the question yet. So
do we have an intro about what happened in our week? Or I love Mr. Meeseeks. Yes, please tell me about your cup.
The other thing about Mr. Meeseeks.
Obviously, you have had a haircut as well. You cut your hair off.
Yeah, I look different too.
And the beard.
About that. And well, yeah, I'm not really having a beard. So as the mug is hot, all the Mr. Meeseeks show up.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can see my coffee isn't all the way to the top.
Yes.
And this was actually a gift from a student.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Am I a bit dark? I think I'm a bit dark. Oh, and the other thing is today's t-shirt is...
Sure. You can do today's t-shirt.
Metroplex. Optimus Prime. What is yours?
It's the day in the life of the sort of Godzilla person.
A Godzilla person. Godzilla being a person.
I mean, I'm guessing, yeah, it's sort of like day in the life of Godzilla.
Do you know what I see when I think that? I think of the dinosaur when your internet doesn't work, and the other thing in Chrome.
Oh yeah.
It looks like that.
Sure, it could be that guy too.
It's definitely
my hay fever kicked in like crazy this week, so I hope it's not going to be during the call or during the video. But I don't know. I might sneeze. I'm not sick. Well, I'm sick insofar as I'm allergic to pollen that's going on right now, but
I think we'll be fine. So we're here to take apart another question from one of my students.
Yes.
And do we agree that the name Terrible Tangents is the right name? Because
I don't know. Yes.
I don't know.
You don't think so? Because otherwise you wouldn't be asking the question.
Yeah, I don't think so, because of the word terrible. What do you think from a branding point of view?
I hadn't thought about it.
Have the word terrible there? Terrific?
You prefer terrific? Because it's not, because terrible, we're being ironic about using the negative as a positive, or presumably as a positive? Or we're going in and saying that tangents are not good, but they are?
We could, but who would figure that out?
Anybody?
Or doesn't it matter?
Watches?
Does it just, we just not bother?
Yeah, I just thought we'd set on that, and I was not thinking about it, and I did not put a lot more thought into it, but we certainly can put a lot more thought into it. Terrific Tangents was the other option that we talked about with
what we'll say is, if you're watching this, when you're watching this, leave a comment with other names, because
do you want to crowdsource the whole thing, just like not be responsible for your name?
Completely crowdsource and not be responsible.
So it's like, that's the whole other thing. You ask me for my opinion about what it is as a brand, but you're like, no, let's just ask other people what they think.
We'll get them all together, but ultimately it's going to be our decision anyway. But I want to know what other people think, don't you? Or you don't care. You're so enlightened, you don't care what other people think.
No, I do care what people think, but not about that particular topic.
Well, The question that we've been
I'm
asked,
interested in knowing, but it's not like we have a gigantic audience with tons of people asking. There, you did have a few students give you suggestions a couple of weeks ago, I think.
yeah,
And
we've
we
we've
just
been
went
on a
with
half
this.
term.
And you know, it was coffee and chat. I could just retitle every YouTube video. It's not like it's very complicated. We don't have tons just yet. And we could just retitle Terrific Tangents. I've just been publishing it as Terrible Tangents. I don't think a lot of people have noticed or watching us so far, so we could just change to another name and it won't be a massive drama.
We're expecting miracles.
Oh, I didn't change my
Yeah, I just did that just now. While you're doing that,
yeah.
today's question does somehow relate to all of this. So this was an actual question from an actual student.
I hope those are all actual questions from us. That's the whole
They
point.
are all
That's the
actual
whole point of the
questions.
show.
It is the whole point, but people sometimes think I'm lying, but I'm not. These
Your
are genuine
students
questions.
think you're lying?
Yes, sometimes they don't believe me. I say things that are factually true, if that isn't a tautology. I tell them truths and they don't like it, or they think
Yeah.
I'm lying. And
Sure.
especially when I say the things that I might have done, they just don't believe me. They just don't believe me. So they're used to it. But this was a question.
Yes.
Today's question is, and I
Completely.
think
And I'm unprepared. I don't know what the question is every time we do this, which
yeah.
Now that we're getting there, I'm like, oh my God, all right. Go ahead.
But that's why this is so good. I deliberately like the fact you don't know it.
All right, let's move on because like now our audience is getting bored. Let's go.
Well, I'm not getting bored, so who cares? So here's the question: how much do GCSE and A-level results actually affect jobs you can apply for or things you can do in the future? So to make that a bit more global, I would say, how much do exam results actually affect jobs you can apply for or things you can do in the future?
Well, you said GCSE and A-Levels, which is middle school and high school results, right?
That's right, yeah.
But you want to expand that out to university results? Because I think that's different.
No, well, let's focus on school results. Let's say school, how much do school, because when I say exam results, maybe because I'm a teacher, I tend to think of school. I don't really think of uni, even though those are exam results, but I think of school. How much
so we're talking up to high, how much do exam results matter for middle school, high school, before university?
Yeah, before university.
Or before other kinds of just professional training or vocational training, whatever.
Well, the question actually says actually affect jobs you can apply for or things you can do in the future. So I think there's two bits to it. How much do school exam results affect jobs you can apply for? And how much do school exam results affect things you can apply for in the future?
Well, it really depends how old you are, because if you've just had your A-levels, they matter a lot because that's the only thing that you've got on your resume or CV. Not the only thing, but you know, if there's any kind of academic achievement to look at and you're applying for jobs once you finish your A-levels, you're not going to university, or it's a summer job, whatever, or it's an internship, then it may well matter, because that's one thing that potential employers or people looking at you for an internship are going to be looking at. How much it has an impact on whether you're going to be succeeding in whatever you're doing, that's a whole other debate that we're probably going to have over the course of the next 50 minutes. But it certainly, it reflects well to have better results.
Yeah.
It's not very rocket science kind of thing. If you have great results and you have that on your CV and you can say, and people, oh, you have really great A-level results. Oh, and great level. Oh, that's very good. So if you're an employer or somebody who has to select someone, you have to have you have to have ways to filter out candidates, because you're not going to be able to meet, say you have 100, I don't know, like arbitrarily picking 100. How do you filter out how many you're going to meet before you choose? You probably don't have time to meet 100. You might want to.
You worked in recruitment for a while.
I did, yeah.
Were exam results important when you were recruiting?
No, I mean,
it depended on the role, right?
It really depends. If you have high school results at the level of the kind of jobs I was looking at did not matter, because I was not hiring or looking at people who were coming out of high school. This was not make it so you, as a recruiter, you're out to make money. It's a sales job. So placing high school students is not very lucrative. I'm sorry to tell you this. It's not. So if you're a high school student, you should manage by your own, with your family, contacts, whatever, just, now, results do matter, generally speaking. If you've gone to a good university and if you have a good, what's it called?
Network?
Anyway, no, just the results, just the
Grades?
Good grades, yeah. There's a first. There you go. That's the word.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Because that's the UK way to look at it.
It is, yeah.
So if you have an honorary, if you have good grades, whatever it is, and a good university, then it's really good. It just looks good. I'm not going to select, as a recruiter, I wouldn't necessarily select somebody only on that basis. But that said, if we're looking at graduates, I'm going to try to, I will try to select out. You need to have measures to filter people out, and that's one of them. Quite simple.
Exam results are a way of filtering out people when you're applying for a job. That's the main kind of point. Yeah.
Now, it's not the only thing at all, and it's not the most, I would argue it's not even the most important thing, but it really depends who this is for. It's almost more important that you stand out in some other way, but it's also a really strong foundational base to say, oh, you got good grades. That means it's somebody that, if you got good A-levels, like, well, it's somebody that knows their math, so they have like a rational good mind, they've practiced, or they have their English, or they're, it's a foundational thing for the recruiter or the employer, potential employer, not to be worried or too worried about the fact that you know how to spell, or you know how to count, or you know how to do basic things from a brain perspective. You're like, all right, I'm not going to have to train him to how to write in English, so that I can spend my time training on the job rather than having to reteach school.
That's the thing about reteaching school. I've heard that some employers
I'm guessing, right? I
get concerned about, like, oh, why do I have to reteach them how to write an email? Yeah, and I think your guessing is logical, but I think that sometimes pupils have asked me, they get very boxed in their thinking. They don't realize that doing a history degree develops, or doing history at A-level, or even history at GCSE, develops important skills like thinking analytically, like being able to interpret written documents. That's a really important thing to be able to do. But they think of it as, oh, if I do history A-level or history GCSE, that means, well, what career is that going to lead to? They're very boxed in their thinking, a bit like when...
But because that's the whole institution is built that way. We talked about that a little bit, but...
That's,
sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, the example I like to give about this box thinking is everybody wants to be part of something, and there's subjects to find them. And I used to go to school, I used to teach every day, I used to wear a black suit, black shirt, black tie, all in black. And some of the pupils would ask me, sir, are you a goth?
Are you a goth because you're dressed in a black suit?
Yeah. Am I a goth? Am I an emo? Sir, you're an emo, because I wear black all the time. And then
also they were just teasing you because they knew they could.
Well, partly that, but there was also a genuine, they wanted to pigeonhole me. They wanted to see what box I was in. And it was always this whole, like, oh, you are like that kind of person.
Sure.
And I think that the subjects we can let them define us and then define our careers. It's very different but that getting out of that thinking of the subject is what you learn, rather than the thinking behind the subject is what's important. If you do maths at GCSE and A-level, you develop your ability to think analytically or in an abstract way.
Yeah.
That's what young people really do not get. But I think it goes back to your point about schools are designed to get you to think that way.
Yeah. And at the same time, you're still correct. I mean, but I didn't understand that when I was in school, obviously. I was also thinking the same way. I was like, why am I learning math? It's not going to be useful. I'm not interested in that. Which was very short-sighted and very young. But when you're not very smart when you're young, you think you are.
Well,
so I mean, I'm
having a little
teenagers
debate.
Are not very smart. I know. Sorry, like teenagers that might be watching this. I'm sorry. You're not.
I don't apologize for that. I tell them that all the time. I can't think
No,
of any other
but
way.
I was absolutely certain that I knew everything as a teenager, and of course the old people were
Really?
stupid. Yeah, of course, you know, you knew everything. Not that I knew it, but that's a bit of my thing. I just kind of act like I know everything, which I don't. I have absolutely no rhyme or reason to justify that way of being at all.
Wait a minute. But you genuinely thought when you were a teenager that you were like, you
Well, I
knew?
mean, I regularly thought that, you know, the old people obviously don't understand anything.
Okay,
You never
because I
thought
don't,
that? I mean, I wasn't thinking that all the time, right? And I had, you
I
know,
know, I
I
don't, I
regularly
don't,
have big. No, you don't. Okay, not you.
no. I mean, I don't, when I was a teenager, I don't think I thought that. I think I
I
was
don't. I
mostly,
think and I could be mistaken. I don't really remember. It was a long time ago, but
but I mean, I always felt like I was the never good enough. I was always the bad person. I was always like, I had to do whatever my parents said to get, I had to get good results so I could, it was a revelation to me that I didn't have to go to university. It was a revelation to me that I didn't have to do A-levels. I thought everybody did. That's how immature I was. But everybody does their GCSE exams, and
sure.
then everybody does A-levels. I didn't
Yeah.
know that you didn't have to do A-levels. It was a shock to me. You mean I didn't have to do this? That's when I started to realize, oh, there's more
Yeah,
than
but I
just
mean,
school.
where I was and where I was growing up, not doing that was considered not the right thing to do, which I think is very unfortunate. And we mentioned that before as well. But
Yeah, yeah, it is. There is that the certain perception about certain careers. Oh, you're not
yeah,
going to be very good. Like there's that. Do you know? Right, I'm going to segue to a film. There's that
sure.
line in The Social Network, which I love that film. I love it, and I've shown it in school, which I probably shouldn't have said, but I think it relates to entrepreneurship, ideas, class, uh, the future, and creating something, and crowdfunding and funding and sources of finance. All there's so many business things, but there's a line in there where Mark Zuckerberg, the character, says to, I think it's his girlfriend. I think it's in the opening scene. He says something like, "The ability to make money doesn't impress anybody." And the for me, like that line, I was like, okay, so just because somebody makes loads of money, that's for some people that still doesn't impress anybody, because there's a certain amount of class or upbringing that goes with that. So it's even though a lot of my students are driven by wanting to make loads of money, like, oh, money is everything, making loads of money doesn't, and having loads of cool stuff isn't ultimately what impresses people. But in that film, it's very much like, who cares how much money you have? It's just how you are. It's the club you're in. It's the
Yeah,
people you know.
but it's in context. I'm sure. And the dudes at Harvard already say while saying that, and he just, you know, is so you got to remember that he is there. He's probably worked on his GCSEs and A-Levels before getting there.
Yeah. So you mean
So
he's
no, but
already in a
it's like
privileged
they're
position?
not. Yes, but also to say you're absolutely right, and it's a very interesting quote, and it's also you can't use that as justification for saying, well, the GCSEs don't really matter to my career at the point where you're in middle school or high school, because you're like, well, if you want to compare yourself to Mark Zuckerberg, you better work your ass off on the math side of things, and you better be as smart as him. So
Now this is a really good point. This is a really good point to make. Like
not that you have to be, and not that is necessary, and not that that is the right way to have a fulfilled or happy life at all. I don't think so.
Yeah, because the other thing that the people in school will say to me as well is like, look at so and so, they dropped out of school, they they did really well for themselves, and they never, like Richard
Sure.
Branson didn't do very well, dropped out of school, or didn't do very well in his exams, and he made loads of money. And I think that there's a certain amount of, I could be a YouTuber and make loads of money and not have to worry about going to school. Or
Maybe,
there
but
was,
those who do, I mean, we talked about this last time, just like Richard Branson and Mark Zuckerberg, are massive outliers. And the chances
yes,
that your student in question saying this, or any student, or me, of them being that is like, I mean, I wish them all the luck in the world to be there, but the likelihood is low.
yes, there's a,
Probability wise, the
there was a,
likelihood is they're going to be just kind of normal people, more or less, and
there
they'll
was
be
a,
special to the people who know them and their family and their friends, and you know, and
there
maybe
was a
if they're a
great,
YouTuber to the if they're good at it, the tens of thousands, maybe millions, maybe. But even if you have 1 million or 2 million people that are subscribed to your channel and you have 1 million people watching you, let's say, and that's really, really fucking, that's just, I don't know, I said a swear word, but
You
that's
did say
successful.
swear word. Not cool. It is
But,
successful, yeah. We've managed not to swear. We've done a pretty good job of that until
yeah,
that
I've done a
point.
pretty good job. I was thinking that I closed all my windows, but I was like, oh, I should have kept the YouTube window open in case there's anybody commenting. So now just
commenting?
I don't know. Do you have it open? I don't have it open. That's why I'm thinking maybe I should reopen it. But it might make some random noises when
that's what I'm worried about. Let me click the live thing. While I'm clicking the live thing, oh, did you hear that?
No.
Okay, all right, that's cool. I just muted because it's running behind. I can't see the live chat. But you make a really interesting point about this whole like wanting to make money thing and being easy. And there was an article that went around relatively recently about this guy in the UK, teenager, who won millions or a lot of money playing Fortnite and winning Fortnite. And the amount of people in my class at school who were slightly younger than GCSE who were like, I could just play Fortnite and make loads of money. Did you hear about that kid who made loads of money playing Fortnite? And I think it goes back to hard work, being like putting in work. People don't see what goes into success. Having 1 million, I think you said this like a couple of weeks ago about like the people who are putting out content and on YouTube and have lots of followers. It's really hard work. It takes a lot of thinking. I think you said that, right?
Yeah. So we have one person watching. We went down from 2 to 1 and there's no comments. Sorry, I was just like trying to reopening all that stuff.
Okay. The hard work is not, it's almost like it's not valued. Everyone wants to be an overnight success, literally overnight, and don't see all the work that goes into it. And there's a really
and that's the same for Richard Branson example or Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the fact that he dropped out of school is not the driving, you know, he may well have, but that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. What matters is he probably worked his ass off to be able to get wherever he is afterwards, regardless of whatever else you want to say. And Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard because he was, I mean, I guess that smart. He was going to have all the degrees anyway. He's like, all right, cool. I'm just going to do that. No, is it good? Is it not? I don't know. I mean, you know, Social Network's fantastic. By the way, did you see that? I saw a headline saying that Quentin Tarantino just said it was the best movie ever.
No, I didn't see that.
Like, oh, whatever. But I mean, I love Sorkin. So, I mean, of course you do love Sorkin too. So the writing and the conversation is absolutely amazing. And there is absolutely no doubt that it's completely dramatized, like massively.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a very well made drama, but but a lot of the ideas in that film, I think, are really, I think they speak to a lot of the shift between maybe Gen X and millennials of what am I going to do? What does it mean to succeed? I have to do really well at exams so that I can get to the next thing, so that I can have a life, so that I can make money, so that I can do this. And there was a certain amount of that I experienced as a teenager, but I don't think the pressure to succeed was anything like it is now.
Yeah, you don't think?
No, I don't. I think there was more room for us to explore, even though I didn't perceive it that way at the time. I mean, I look at my career path and I never expect, this is another question I get asked at school. Did you expect to be a teacher? No, I didn't. I didn't expect to change careers. So this is one of the things that my pupils don't believe. I took a pay cut to train and become a teacher. I was in a senior position at school at one point, the head of the sixth form. I stepped down from that position. I took a pay cut because I didn't want to become a senior teacher. I want to do other things. And when I tell the pupils that, they go, why?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to them to take a pay cut.
It doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to them. The idea that if you're really clever and you do really well in exams, then of course you should make loads of money. It doesn't.
No, but that's the other thing is, so, and back to the question, right? Yes, your GCSE and A-level results and exams matter right now for the next step. Once you get to university, once you're doing anything else, it does not matter at all. But it matters insofar as you said earlier, when you're doing history or whatever topic or whatever lesson you're doing, you are developing your brain in a way to learn. You're learning to learn, and you're learning to develop all sorts of softer skills. So when you're studying English, you're studying how to write, and you're studying how to know to write, so that you don't have to talk to people who are like, oh, I'm not going to hire or work with this person because they don't know how to write. I can't, So, and where I was going with this is it only matters up insofar as the next step. And at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, you're right. It doesn't matter, but it matters right now for where you are. If you're in high school or if you're in middle school, it matters very, very much. And you can only say, like, when 10 years from now, we can turn back and we can have a conversation and we can both agree that it didn't really matter, but only because you actually went through the effort of doing it.
There's two, I think you said two really profound things. One, I'm serious. I'm totally serious. I think you have. The first thing you said, it only matters as far as the next step. That's, I think, so important. And then it matters for the effort that you put in to get the results that you get, because putting that effort in is where the learning happens. The struggle is where the learning happens.
Yeah. And here's the other thing that I was thinking of, what I didn't say, is having good grades is not enough to differentiate you, because guess what? There's tons of other people who have good grades. Tons.
Yes.
So you need other things to distinguish who you are. And the argument that I'd hear when I was a kid as well, and I even thought that myself, of course, when I was a teenager, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter because I'm going to go and do this particular job. And I know I'm going to go, whether I'm going to go to a vocational school, learn to be a plumber, an electrician, or I'm going to be a software engineer, so I don't need to learn this. That's not true. It doesn't matter. Even if you're going to be a plumber, have great GCSEs. Why wouldn't you? One, it's like, if I have a good grade and have a good grasp on being able to write an argument for your history lesson, so because you've understood how it works and how to write the right kind of essay for this, is going to be useful to anything that you're doing. And even for plumbing school or even for a plumber, they still have a bunch of different candidates they have to sift through. Now, so that's to have that kind of good grades for that next step, whatever the next step is, it doesn't matter. Is good, and you should have something else to distinguish yourself that is maybe more than to write on your CV that, like, I want to make loads of money. Like, who are you, and who are you that you're bringing to the table that is interesting to the person that is reading your CV? And that's something I really seriously believe in, that I learned in recruitment, that I learned generally speaking. What are you going to say in addition to the fact that you have good grades? Because good grades is like a given. It's, of course, it just takes you out of the mass of everyone else. Now that you have tons of other people who also have good grades, how are you going to distinguish yourself one step further? And that could be, you have a couple of lines that go, well, I have a YouTube channel about this thing. And it doesn't matter if in your head you want to be rich with your YouTube channel. Fantastic, great, good for you. But what is interesting to the person recruiting is that, oh, this person is passionate about gardening and they have a YouTube channel about it. Or, oh, they have a video game streaming channel. All right, cool. Why not? They've gone through the end, that you would be able to go to that video streaming channel and see that they've streamed and done a bunch of videos and have good grades. And you're like, all right, this kid is serious. Whatever they're up to.
What you're saying, again, so great. Developing a passion doesn't happen overnight. But it makes you interesting. Like when I discovered playing guitar, and I remember one Saturday I got up and I started playing guitar. I was trying to work out a song. I was using a tape player. I was playing it, rewinding it, trying to work it out by ear. I had some breakfast. I went and played guitar. The next thing I know, it's like 4 o'clock. I've spent like the day playing guitar, but it does seem like quite a few of the younger people that I come across, they're afraid to allow themselves to get into something that in the long run would differentiate themselves from other people going for jobs as well as good grades, but I don't know why. I don't know what, like, they expect to be. They don't want to be terrible at something. They want to
Well,
be
you
good
start,
at
you're
it straight
terrible
away.
at something when you start. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
fine. But I'll tell you what, you don't want to be, for all the kids listening, if they are, everything around you, and by that I mean essentially your computer, your phone, even watching this, to be honest, is encouraging you to be a consumer of stuff so that you can just turn your brain off. You could just like go to apps, go to the simple playing games, go to YouTube, go to Netflix and consume stuff. Go to TikTok, whatever, it doesn't matter. But and consuming is not wrong, right? We all do that because there's more and more that's fine. But also get interested in something and be a creator and develop your skills for something exactly like you said, whether it's guitar, gardening, making YouTube videos, playing video games, developing like, all right, what am I interested in? And actually being a teenager and being at school is the opportunity to look at what am I interested in and what do I want to develop? What do I want to learn? And learning guitar is as valuable a skill. Learning how to stream videos is a valuable skill because you can learn how to look into the camera. You can learn how to use a bunch of different applications and software. You can learn how to do public speaking, how to do video editing. There's tons of different things that go into it, let alone the video game skills themselves. And that's just one example, but and also if you want to be even, if you want to be tactical about it, because you're like, oh, I really want to earn money through YouTube, then I mean, good luck, but try to find a niche that is not really overserved. Because I say good luck because, we have, I don't know what the latest number was. The last time I looked, it was what, 96 hours of content uploaded to YouTube every second or minute or something. There's
Wow.
trillions of hours of stuff on there of just, you could, I mean, you could easily spend your whole life consuming stuff and never create anything. But then, you know what, just
You're just, Willem, you're saying another very profound thing.
thank you.
You don't realize, but this consume is very different from creating, and creating is where it's at.
Creating is where it's at. And yes, there is failure in creating. There is confronting the fact that you're shit at something. I think I'm shit at what we're doing now.
Can you stop swearing? Seriously.
Sorry, I apologize.
It's going to get me in trouble because
I apologize.
Not like that.
I have to remember that we're not explicit. This is not this is a child-friendly channel.
Well, young person friendly, but I mean,
person friendly, not child friendly.
It's not like they haven't heard those words, and it's not like I haven't used those words occasionally for effect in a lesson with older pupils. I admit that I have, but the being able to own the fact what words we use, I think is something that.
No, I agree, and I typically, I mean, I like using swear words, and on the other hand, when I'm doing videos, I typically avoid that because I don't find it's very.
But it communicates how passionate you feel about creating stuff. You're in a creative industry. You're a creative person, and do you feel a certain amount of frustration with consume, and people not wanting to create?
I mean, I want to say yes. I also like consuming content, of course. And just like anybody, I don't like to confront the fact that I don't feel I'm as good as I would like to be or think I ought to be. Or then I look around and look at somebody else who's doing something vaguely similar to what I want to do. And I'm like, oh, they're so much better than me. That just forget it. It's not worth it. I'll just tune to Netflix for a while.
I'm just reading books. I think I love that. And if there's one thing I keep coming back to, I keep saying in school, reading books, the quality of thinking that develops from reading books cannot be understated, in my opinion. And I think that
and it's a better option to go for a book than to go for YouTube or TikTok or Netflix or
TikTok. Oh my God. So
I mean, TikTok is fine. I don't really spend much time on TikTok, to be honest.
Davina started to get into it, and it's like I can hear it, but it's on the one hand, it's pure genius for holding attention.
It's a drug.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so clever when you think about it, but horrific when it comes to developing any kind of sustained attention and thinking.
There's another tough one. I mean, it's tougher for me to keep attention and focus on anything for sure, because there's just so much out there to distract you from everything, right? And then the other thing is, another pitfall for me is to spend too much time researching something, but at some point the research is a way to procrastinate or delay actually working on creating something.
Analysis paralysis. Now, you've had a bit of a shift in that recently. You did your own workshop, didn't you, this week?
I did.
You managed to do something. You
I
created
did.
something. You took some action. What was that
Yeah,
like?
no, I did. I did. It was great on one hand.
Yeah.
On another, I finished it and I was like, this was really bad. Why did I do this? It was embarrassing. I tried to do too much in one go. The too much I did was not ready. It was not prepared. It was not. I felt like it was not good. Now,
what was the feedback?
At the same time, the other thought behind that was to say, okay, remember that the success here is that I did it.
Yeah.
And that's difficult to remind myself to go, okay, the whole point was I put that in as a milestone so that people expected me to have something. It motivated me to get something together. It didn't work the way I wanted it to. But that was also part of the experiment. The 3 people participating, I had said, like, this is completely experimental. And it was fun. It was fun. They enjoyed it. They got something out of it. I thought, okay, this was way too experimental. I tried to do too much, so I need to do something a lot simpler. And that's usually part of my own pitfalls. I mean, they're not very original at all, but it's to try to do too much in one go, to not be entirely ready for it, and to have things that don't really flow together. And I should have put more work into what I was doing, but I also thought, okay, I'm ready, which I wasn't. But
you just summed up every every new teacher's experience when they teach maybe their first 3 or 4 lessons or their first lesson. They do too much. They think they know what they're doing, but they crammed it all in, and they could have done more to prepare. Like that's universal. I remember that when I was training to be a teacher. Oh, this will happen. I'll be able to get this done, and by the end of the lesson, it'll be great. No, never. So, but I think it's a huge deal that you've done it.
I recorded it, and there's also technically the fact that the way I wanted to have things operate and the way that I could record them didn't work, and I did it anyway.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the right, well, on one hand, I didn't have the right kind of, so what I mean by that is I delivered the workshop both through Zoom on video and through Miro, an online collaborative whiteboarding tool. Mm-hmm. And I wanted everybody to be participating in the whiteboarding tool, but to be able to record both the video and the whiteboarding tool, ideally I should have had 2 screens, and because that would have been the easiest way to do both together. There's probably other ways, but let's just say that for now. I couldn't, so what I did was share my screen, and because I shared my screen, then the participants didn't really feel the need to go into the whiteboarding tool because I could just do it for them.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. So
that it doesn't matter, but it was the way I recorded it was contrary to my intention of the participants. For the participants. Yeah. I thought I recorded it because I wanted to see, and I definitely want to rewatch. I thought I would publish it on YouTube. I think I'm not going to publish this one. However, I may well ask to share it with you and a few other people to get your feedback from a post, knowing that there's a lot wrong with it, but also interested in, like, if you want to take a little bit of time and look through it, that would be cool. So I did some of the things that were really, really ambitious and completely, silly, but interesting, was I asked everybody, so there's a huge, and I kind of knew, but there was a huge disparate, like there's disconnect between some of the content and the exercise. So I'm working on models on my model for doing brand strategy. And I wanted to present that as an overarching view. So, and it's still work in progress, but I presented it. But then the exercise was not immediately linked to that, really. So that's already time that's killed because I was doing two things that were arguably not exactly linked together. And then we did an exercise that I knew I was tight on time. And we spent the first 15 minutes chatting in a way that was not planned. And I was already 15 minutes off before we started. So I was late everywhere. And
it sounds like one of my lessons.
Yeah.
The thing, and I think it's so great that you did it. I get, I'm giving you a huge compliment. It's so cool that you actually.
Thank you. And I need to schedule another one.
Yeah, do it, because I like to think that, and maybe this is me being presumptuous and somewhat arrogant, maybe, but I like to think that the fact we are doing this on a Sunday kicks you into action.
No, it does really, because I had promised you that I would progress on my workshop, and then actually I went ahead and I scheduled it. So it is really helpful to me to do this.
So, and to bring everything you just said back to the question about how do exam results matter for what you want to do in the future?
Yes.
So on the one hand, yes. On the other hand, being willing to explore and do stuff and experiment and create can matter as much as exam results, because they differentiate you from everyone else.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're willing to do stuff and experiment and create something in your industry differentiates you from every other brand strategist out there who's got great results and actually made things happen, great exam results and made things happen.
Yeah.
You could see when you were talking about that, this should have been better, what did I do? It was like you were replaying it in your mind. And being willing to talk about that is something that I think younger people could benefit from. Being willing to go, that wasn't great, but I'm still going to go anyway. The younger people I teach, they want to be good straight away. They want to know.
That's not how it works.
They want to have the answers now. And that's not how it works.
And I sympathize with it. I sympathize with the students altogether. I mean, one, it's difficult. And also just school and exams, sometimes it's just not cool. It's not much fun. And I was not very much into exams. I just didn't like it. I was pretty lazy at school. I was probably in this category of being, I think, fairly bright, but bright enough that I didn't have to, I would do nothing and coast and just be okay.
One of the most annoying kinds of people.
Teachers hated me for that. I mean, they didn't hate me. They were like, just so disappointed.
You could do so much better. You've got so much potential. I'll do enough to get by. And then, and also the other students would have got annoyed with you as well. There's people who like working really hard and yet you do very little and get the same result.
Well, I was not advertised the fact that I did very little. Or maybe I was actually, I don't know. But there's one anecdote I remember from that time, and I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I think I mentioned this before. I mean, like most teenagers, I really sympathize. I had no idea what I was doing or what I wanted to do or why I was studying the things that I was studying. I was very much, the only thing I had made clear for myself was that I was more of a literary and creative person. So right. I didn't have to study science and math. That was not for me. That was clear. And so before going into my last year of high school and before going into the baccalaureate, I needed to make a choice between, they changed it a little bit, but there's 3 tracks between.
So you were like 16, 17 or 15, 16?
15, 16.
Yeah, okay.
15, 16, at the end of it was the first year of high school, sorry, yeah. So 15, is that right? No, 14, 15.
Oh, it was a bit, okay, all right, yeah. 14,
so
15,
I finished,
yeah.
15, 16 was, and then 17, yeah, so 15.
3 tracks.
Yeah, literary, scientific, or economic, social. Those are the 3 tracks that I had to choose from to get to the baccalaureate.
Okay.
And you have a main trunk of common topics, but then common subjects or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And then you have specialties that are, anyway, I think it changed since then a little bit for the baccalaureate, but anyway, that's how it was when I did it. And I was clearly going through literary. No, actually, sorry, this was a year later, so 16, I apologize. But I had to start figuring out what I was doing for university or after high school. That's what I was, and I was in the library, just browsing through magazines of, what to do for studies and like what track to go on. And I really had no idea. But I read about literary prep schools. So prep, like it's just a very high, and I don't think prep school is the same thing in French that it is in English. I'm not exactly sure, but it might be around the same thing, which is basically there are a few public ones and it's super intense preparation for very specialized, like the grande école, the high, like the what's called the great schools. And I was like, oh yeah, that's very prestigious and very, very super high level academic, and they only take the best. And, you know, I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I don't know why. I think, and the only thing in the margin, which was completely silly, was saying that I think it was saying there were 80% women for 20% men, which I was already in a class that had 80% women in the literary section I was in. So it's not like I was, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. I should do that. And I went to my head teacher to say, I'm going to prepare applications for prep schools. And he looked at me
like you were mad.
Like, what? And he was like very trying to, and I was eager. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And he was like, Willem, are you sure? I don't think it's really for you. And he was not that I don't think you're not capable, but I don't kind of get the vibe that it's really for you. And very clearly he knew that none of my results for the past 2 years would justify that kind of application. But I prepared all the applications. I got turned down from all of the different schools I applied to. And it was like a lot of paperwork. But meanwhile, I didn't think for a single second what kind of university degree I would go to. If I was not going to get into one of those schools, the fallback is you need to still have some university selections for degrees. And I hadn't thought about that whatsoever. And so the day I realized that you're like compulsory had to ask for some university degrees, I was literally just scrolling down on the Minitel, the black and green screen from back in the day. And I was like, oh, I have to make some selections. And I was just scrolling down and I saw, oh, cinema. Now I want to be a film director. I'll do that. So that's how I ended up studying performing arts and cinema.
Wow.
I really had no idea.
I think a lot of teenagers do think like that. I think it's changed now. I think there is more of that sense of, or maybe it's
that
just
was
the people
me,
teach you
by the
have
way.
to know.
A lot of other people were sensibly going to study economics because that made sense for career or things like that, right? Or a lot of other kids that I was friends with were like, I'm going to study geography. Oh, really? Why? Because a friend of mine is doing that. He says it's okay and it's good and it's not too difficult. I'm like, okay, great.
There's the thing I like about what you're saying is how, you know, the authenticity of it. There is a not knowing is okay. Not having your whole life planned about what you're going to do is okay. Yeah. I think realizing you're probably going to change careers is okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we said in the first episode. You are probably going to change careers. And so that means I did change careers. And after that, I dropped off. I went to work for a while. I earned some money. And then I went back to school to study graphic design, which is what that in turn got me out to the rest of my career. Even though I changed a bunch of times and changed jobs, but I did study and work at the same time. And it turned out that even though that was something that was not, it wouldn't have been particularly cool or well considered to do that in high school. It was something that really worked for me. And that depends on the culture. I know France is trying to do a little bit more of that. Germany has it very well integrated. What I mean, tracks where you do part-time school, part-time work, and you get trained on the jobs.
Yeah, we like in England that would be like apprenticeships.
Yeah,
and
so there's more of that.
Kind of, it's not working as well as it could and should in the UK. There was something I was gonna say about that whole world of exam results. I can't remember what it was. Never mind. It'll come back to me maybe. Yeah. But that people, I guess, like younger people, we all want certainty. Given the times we're living through, everyone's trying to okay, we need to know what we need to do.
Yeah. And sometimes you're asked for that as well. You need to make choices of something that, we're talking about vocational stuff, like all sorts of different jobs. And even then you're like, I'm not, how would I know that I want to do that?
The English system is, I've remembered my point now. The having to choose having to make a choice about what subjects you want to do when you do, like, you get a certain amount of choice at GCSE, and then you narrow even further for A-levels. And they had the AS system where you could do a bit more of a wider range and then narrow down in your last year before you went to uni. Some schools in the UK, and it's growing as far as I know, are thinking and offering the international baccalaureate because they want that breadth of understanding. And I think it goes back to something that keeps coming up, what are the thinking skills that younger people are developing and need to develop to function in the way the world is changing. And I think that, I feel that's really going to become way more important.
And you need a broad range, you know, like, so there is a broad range in the baccalaureate that I did. Even though there were specific tracks, I still had math, and I still had, so if anything, but now it's too late, but of course I was not interested back in the day. I think that it probably would have been valuable to have a little bit of a stronger level in math and physics back then. Now I'm making do without it. That's fine. But it's true that, well, I mean, I made that choice back in the day, and it worked for me as well. To say, okay, well, there's a whole range of stuff in math and science that I'm probably not going to go for in my life. Right or wrong, I don't know. But certainly that didn't mean I still had math and physics and science in my baccalaureate. I still had that.
And to quite a high level, right? It's not.
I mean, I don't know high level. So it's high school level. It's not very high level compared to the other tracks. No. Okay. I was doing 2 hours of math a week, and it just kind of coasted about the same level for the last year, rather than expanding to anything. I didn't learn anything that I didn't know how to do. And I probably never really learned trigonometry. I don't think I got to that. I mean, sort of, maybe a little bit, but not so much.
There's been the educational system in the UK has changed a lot. It used to be grades by letter. Now it's grades by number, and the English and maths has got a lot more difficult at GCSE before A-level. Like, it's all changing a lot, and I can appreciate for younger people it's hard. They're looking for that certainty, looking for that idea, and so often I will say to them, I'm not going to give you a definite answer because I can't. You've got to discover it for yourself. Being willing to discover and look for yourself and explore, and like, I've made some suggestions I've made to students is like, start your own blog, start writing, discover your passion for something, and
even if you write in a journal, just write for yourself if it's not for somebody else.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference to being able to articulate your thoughts and
absolutely
explore what you might be interested in.
And another thing that I appreciate or sympathize with, it's not necessarily easy. Not everybody's got the same strengths. And it's not easy you have to conform to the way the exams are made and prepared. And that's not necessarily easy for everyone. Like, that's not even starting to begin to think about whatever's going on at home and whatever's going on in situation, your parents, siblings, and like, you know, that may facilitate or not your studying at home. It takes a lot. But I guess, unfortunately, it's not great, but it's the best they can say to say that they're coming back to the question that it matters to apply yourself as much as you can to get the best grades possible, because that's your minimum base level. And that's the same throughout. It's a foundational level in the same way that you have to put a foundation to a house to be able to build it. It's like you need the best grades you can get.
There's something, I think,
and if you haven't done your best for that, and you know, just like I knew I was coasting. And fine, if you're coasting, you have decent grades, fine. I mean, I can't recommend it. I shouldn't, like, you should do better, but you also know, if you're doing your best you can, right? That's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
And if you can afford to say, yeah, my grades are good enough and I'm not doing my best, suit yourself, fine.
That's
I can't recommend that, but
that's the kind of thing I want to kind of bring it to a close with, is that there is something deeply satisfying, in my opinion, about doing well. Not because I want to get a good result to get to the next thing or whatever, you know, which can be important. I think that point you made about doing well enough to get to the next thing is incredibly important. But there is something really cool and satisfying about knowing, you know what, I figured it out, I did really well, and I got a good result. I think it's really important also related to the idea of strengths, about knowing what a good result is for you, which I think goes back to the whole self-awareness thing. If I know I did my best, I gave 100%, I did everything, I learned it all, went for it, and I come out with an average grade, great. But knowing of, I mastered something and I got over it, I challenged myself and did well, there's something really like, that you can be really satisfied with that, I think.
Yeah, and I oh, we have a comment from Myra. Yeah, and I suspect strongly that, I mean, I know for sure, given you're putting yourself out there, you're giving videos and you're doing all sorts of stuff, that if your students come and talk to you and ask you questions in a way to look at how they can better what they're doing, you're going to be available for them. And I suspect anybody who's not your student watching this, that there's all your teachers, if not all of them, probably most of them, and if not most of them, at least one who's going to be open and wanting to talk to you if you ask them questions. And probably all of them, even if you don't think they are, they're probably there for that. And you just can go and ask them questions and say, hey, listen, how can I do better at this? Or how can I, because the teachers know more. And I didn't want to ask teachers that, but now that I'm grown up, I'm like, oh, actually, it's a really good question to ask them, something like, what do you think I should be focusing on? Because they know. It might look like they're not paying attention to you, but they know.
This is so great. Again, what you're saying is perfect. It really is. Every teacher would love it if their student came up, I'm like, what can I do to improve, or whatever? They would love it. But what you're saying is great. So it is
sometimes difficult. I mean, I didn't necessarily want to talk to my teachers. I had other things to do.
Yeah. And that's on, I think that's up to teachers to be willing to be open to what the students want to say, in service of this whole idea of getting good results and getting to the next thing and discovering what you want to do.
Yeah, that's also why these kinds of videos are cool. Like, you can just watch them in secret and not have to pretend to your friend. You can tell your friends later, because I don't know if that's still a thing, but I would be worried if I was going to go talk to the teacher at the end of class, whether I was going to look like not cool, because I'm not.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. And I do get comments. I have had comments from ex-pupils who are a bit older at university who really like this conversation and really like what we're saying and our approach and our exploration. So we've got something.
Yeah. And we do have a comment. Myra says, I realize you don't have to get it right now. It's okay. I think she's saying realize you don't have to get it right. And I agree. Yeah, you don't have to get it right now.
There's space to explore, have an adventure.
Yeah.
Play.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I guess that was the right way to end the conversation, right?
I think so. It's like a minute.
So, well, I guess the minute is the title.
Yeah. Tangents are great. They're terrific and terrible.
So we want to keep tangents. That's one we want to keep tangents. We like that. Okay, good. So what else can we add to the tangents? Do we need anything else? Just call it tangents with Willem and James and Willem.
Willem
Tell
and
us
James
what you think in the comments. Huh?
Yeah, let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.